Today I am going to be demonstrating this horse and colored pencil against an airbrush background. Hi, I'm Lisa, the artist behind Lachri Fine Art. Third week in a row, my project's not done at the time that I recorded the intro for this video. For this piece, I worked on Fabriano Artistico Extra White hot press 140-pound watercolor paper. I used Createx airbrush paint for the background. I have a damask stencil that I got from Amazon. I do have a link for that below in the video description. The colored pencils that I used were Polychromos and Luminance, along with one Derwent Drawing Chinese white. If you are supporters over on Patreon, the 2-hour version of this tutorial, complete with voiceover, is available for you guys now. Now let's get on to this tutorial. I started by airbrushing in my background. You can see I've got frisket that is protecting the horse so that I keep that paper completely white. After airbrushing in that background, I'm going to use my damask stencil to stencil in my pattern with white. Once that's done, I can get started on the horse. You can see now that I've removed the frisket, the horse is completely white, no airbrush paint got on him at all. I'm starting by blocking in the hair on his mane. When drawing hair, it's best if you don't try to draw in each individual strand. If you do that, it tends to come out looking very unnatural. So here you can see I've got clumps of the hair. Look closely at your reference photo, how much the fur or the hair looks like it's in clumps versus individual strands. You don't normally notice those stringy strands. So here I've started by blocking in my first several layers before I blend out with the odorless mineral spirits. I'm using Mona Lisa odorless mineral spirits, but the Gamsol works just the same. You can see I've got a few individual strands in the mane, but not a ton. I don't want to overdo that. So building up my values, the lights and the darks on the neck, I've got several layers in there before I blend out with the Mona Lisa odorless paint thinner. Once I blend that out, I have to let that dry completely, and then I can build up my additional layers. Now I am going a bit darker than I'm going to want him to be in the end, just so that I can come back on top with my white pencils, and those whites will really show up well. And again, I'm letting this dry completely before I go on to my next layer when I did use the odorless mineral spirits. I blended that out with the paint thinner again just to soften the lines, and then I'm coming back through and adding more details. And I just continuously build back and forth like that. As long as I don't damage the tooth of the paper by pushing too hard, I can continuously add layer after layer. Going back and darkening up some more areas in the mane. Now I jump around quite a bit as I work. It makes it easier for me to judge my values and my colors. So I'll block in an area, I'll blend it out with paint thinner. While that's drying, I'll usually work on another area, and then I'll jump back to the previous area. I am drawing in the eye. I'm using my black Polychromos to get my darkest values in first. There is some gray and white mixed in with it as well, and later on I will pull some browns on top of that. You want to get your fine detail. Make sure your pencil is really sharp. So I'm blocking in some of the first layers for the skin on the side of his face here. That's going to take many, many layers before I'm ready to blend out with the paint thinner. If you don't have enough pigment on your paper and you try to blend with the paint thinner really doesn't do a whole lot for you. So make sure you've got a lot of that pencil on the paper before you bother with the odorless mineral spirits. And I know sometimes I say paint thinner, sometimes I say the odorless mineral spirits. It's the same thing that I'm using. It goes by both names. So I'm blocking in my darkest values first before I blend everything out, just so that I can keep my place. And I am constantly looking at my reference photo. I spend more time looking at that photo than I do the actual, my work itself, so that I can make sure that I'm not assuming I know what the horse's nose looks like. That happens a lot where you think, okay, I've got this memorized, I can just go to town on my horse and draw everything out. And really, whatever it is you're drawing, keep looking at that reference photo. Non-stop, glance up at that reference photo to check your work. So I blended that out once with the paint thinner, and now I'm going over it with more colored pencil, blending that out again. You can see that it looks really, really dark because the paper is so light. As that dries, it's going to lighten up quite a bit. It's not actually that dark. And it usually only takes 30 seconds to a couple of minutes to dry when I'm working on the Fabriano Artistico the watercolor paper. When I work on Stonehenge, it takes a bit longer. So the type of paper you're using will depend on or affect how long it takes for your paint thinner to dry, as will the amount of paint thinner that you have on your brush. For my first layers, I use a lot of paint thinner. I put it on there pretty heavy. When I get towards the last layers, I don't use as much paint thinner on my brush. I dab it off on an old rag and I let that dry a little bit before I touch the paper, because if you have too much paint thinner on your brush towards those last layers where you've got multiple layers of colored pencil on your paper, you can actually lift some of the color and make a whole mess. The brushes that I'm using are mostly the Taklon bristled filberts, both gold and white Taklon. I'm starting to layer some of the blue-green color from the background into the horse because I want him to feel like he's a part of the background, not that he's just cut out from another image and stuck on here. So I'm using quite a bit of those blues in there. I just keep building up. You can see I've softened my edge on the underside of his jaw there. I want that to be really soft and just fade into the background. Now, if you're working in multiple light layers, you're pretty unlimited on how many layers you can work in. If you're using Prismacolor, the wax bloom will start to prevent how many layers you can do. But for the Luminance and the Polychromos, as long as I'm not damaging the tooth of the paper, I can just keep layering and layering and layering until I get everything to look how I want. So if I have an area that came out too light or too dark, I can just keep working and layering until it comes out how I want. You can see I've added, with that white pencil, I'm adding a few little strands of hair on the side of his face there. Don't go too heavy. Don't try to put in every single strand of hair or you'll make him look a lot fluffier than he should be. So here I've just put in a few to give you that hint of fur without overdoing it to where it's distracting and drawing too much attention to the wrong area and makes him look wiry. So I'm back to building up my values again, darkening everything up. Make sure as you're working that you continuously back away from your piece and look at it from a distance and look at it upside down. Sometimes things will pop out to you that are highlighted more than they should be or are too dark, and that's easier to look at or notice from a distance or upside down. I had to do that a lot on this piece. I just want a hint of the fur on his forehead because that's really washed out from the light hitting strong there, so I don't want to put too much detail. Again, darkening things up. It's better to slowly darken things up than to go too dark too soon and have trouble lightening it back up. It's always easier to make something darker and a lot harder to lighten it up, at least with colored pencil. Notice when I'm blending here, I blend over the light and the dark areas so that they smudge together and give me a very soft look. If I needed to keep those areas separate where the blue I didn't want to blend into the white next to it, I would blend those individually and not over the whole area like you've seen me do here. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Again, if you are supporters over on Patreon, the 2-hour version of this video is available for you now, complete with voiceover, so make sure to check that out. If you're new to my channel, I have new video critiques every Tuesday where I'm critiquing your original paintings or drawings, my own speed paintings, drawings, and tutorials every Wednesday, social media tips or art Q&A videos every Thursday, and artist vlogs every weekend. So if you haven't already, I would love for you to subscribe so you don't miss out on anything, and you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, Google+. All of those social media sites are linked below in the video description where you can keep up with news, my newest work, and see real-time clips of whatever it is I'm currently working on. I'll see you guys tomorrow. I know a lot of you are waiting for the studio tour of my new place, and I have not done that yet. I'm almost done getting everything set up though, so hopefully in the next couple of weeks I can give you guys a tour and show you how I've got everything organized and set up here. I may even opt not to wear pajamas for the tour. You know, to pretend I'm professional and stuff.